This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Brewers Outlet time. That's right. Gonna get hot this weekend. Well, the suit's out on the roller coaster. In fact, I think he may go back tomorrow. It's going to be 89 tomorrow, 90 on Friday. You know what you need? Beverages. Cold beverages. Imports domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, lots and lots of snacks. Now, a great job by Doug from Wellsboro of getting Todd to admit that there are certain snacks he will have. I thought it was brilliant.
Is he a lawyer and we don't know about it?
He plays one in his town. No, I'm just kidding. And they roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. High Noon, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal. Yes, ready to drink cocktails in the pickle barley by the barrels and the dills. Indeed, second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury. The beverage supermarket. James Franklin, by the way, his press conference is at 3:45 today. Okay? So, look, you're going to learn nothing from it. There won't be anything. You may get an opinion here or there on something, for example. Okay? You may get an opinion that maybe you haven't heard before, or reiterating of an opinion. That's fine. But learning about the football team, you're not going to learn much about the team. They've done workouts, but they haven't practiced yet. Simple as that. Haven't practiced. So what are you going to tell them? There isn't anything you're going to find out during his time up there that you didn't have before, right? But, I mean, it's great for the national media to get a chance to ask him questions, let him know, and get a little better feel for, what he's thinking. Sure, that's fine. And no issue with that at all. But
I mean, I guess the only thing might be as if something happened we don't know about.
Yeah, and I don't really know if there's anything right now that there is out there that people would know about, at least to my knowledge. I don't know. Huh? But, I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just telling everybody that, that's, all right, that's what you have. That's what you would know. How about that? All right, it's fine. That's it. And, plus the 3 players are there. Nicholas Singleton, Drew Aller, and Zakee Wheatley. And I think everything's pretty standard. Now, if you're a reporter for another team, for example, when other coaches get up there to talk, you learn more about their teams because you're not covering them on an everyday basis, so you do learn something. So the reporters that who are not covering Penn State on a daily basis, are going to walk out of there and feel like they picked up something from him. Right? You as fans would not be in that category. You have a pretty good handle on what's going on. So you ran the story, and it goes deeper than what I was going into. Tony still wants the championship game?
Yes.
Why? I thought the whole point was to give him the week off.
I do wonder if they still have to play the championship game right now. TV contract-wise.
Jeez, I figure you could sit there and work it out with whomever the network partner is for that year to cover the other two games. I don't know. That makes no sense to me.
I was pretty surprised when I read that because I don't think we've said that once.
I've never once said it because I didn't think they were going to play it. Now, we know they have to play it this year. That's, I'm talking about in the future. I thought this was the replacement for us. You want to play 3 games that weekend? 3 games that day? Like, I don't know. That's one I'm not quite on board with. I thought the entire purpose was to not play that game.
I did not realize how anti the committee these schools were either. That was something else he reiterated, that it wasn't just for the extra games. They want to take the committee's say out of picking the teams.
Well, that's about what this does. I think 4-4-2-2-1 is what, 13? So they still have to pick 3 if it's 16, right? So 4-4-2-2-1, you'd pick 3. If Notre Dame's one of them, you pick 2.
I feel like these bigger schools are kind of angry that they picked SMU instead of the SEC schools yesterday, and they want to make sure or last year, and they want to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, the SMU thing is interesting because if they win and defeat Clemson, then nobody's saying anything about it. An SEC school would have made it because Clemson would have been out. But I don't know.
I think I've said this before. It's just wild to me that we just are supposed to discount their Alabama's performance at Oklahoma last year.
Oh, that one. I watched that game, as I told you, in Minneapolis because I did the Minnesota game, and then I had the team left, but I had to stay overnight because I had to go to Daytona the next day to do basketball on Monday, Tuesday for Thanksgiving week. All right, and I flew back on Tuesday night, and then I did the last game of the season at Beaver Stadium. Was it Maryland? I think it was. And I watched that game, and Oklahoma, which, by the way, finished last in the SEC last year. I mean, actually next to last. It was Kentucky finished last, right? And Oklahoma was just above them. Kentucky finished last. Because I think Oklahoma was 2-6 in the SEC. And one of the wins was over Alabama. Yeah, I don't know. They also had 3 losses. What are you supposed to do with a 3-loss team? The problem is 2 losses, you're in the opinion pool. 3 losses, you're in the out pool in a 12-team playoff. I don't understand why he wants... I mean, everybody at this time of the year is looking to get a little bit of time off somewhere because everybody at the end of November is banged up. Why do you want to take your 2 best teams, statistically, and have them knock each other apart.
Yeah, his quote was he doesn't want to devalue the regular season or the conference championship games.
Does that mean he still has to have a conference championship game? In other words, wouldn't these two games replace the conference championship game?
No, I can't find the quote, or I can't find the quote in the ESPN story or anything, but the AP story we ran yesterday quoted him as saying that it would be 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, and then 1 versus 2 would play for the overall Big Ten championship. 1 versus 2 get the automatic bids, but they're playing for the conference title.
Wow.
I mean, I guess you're assuming they're still getting their bye in a 12 or 14 team system, and one of them will get their, because you're assuming if the number 1 in the Big Ten is going to be 1 or 2 overall, and number 1 in the SEC is going to be 1 or 2 overall, one of those teams is getting a bye anyway, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, one of them the winner would get the bye.
Yeah.
In all likelihood. Now, that a 16-team playoff, they've talked about different various there have been various plans about 1 through 16 where, for example, they would play 7 games in the opening round and not 8. 1 and 2 would get a first-round bye. I don't know if you've heard that one.
I have, but, we talked all spring and early summer that 16 seemed inevitable, and now this little kerfuffle makes it seem like 12's back on the board for the rest of this contract if they can't figure out what to do.
It's called a threat.
Yeah, I realize that.
That's called a negotiating threat. Doesn't mean it's not real. Doesn't mean it wouldn't extend into next year. But look, we're going to keep that chip on the table. Okay, in other words, now we're talking bargaining chips, because right now it is July the 23rd. It's not December 1st when this is supposed to be done.
I understand that. I do wonder how much time they have to work on it once the season starts, though. They get pretty darn busy.
Yeah, but busy to a point. I mean, the people that are trying to put this together, eventually it gets to the athletic directors voicing it. But the people at the conference level, I think have, for example, Petitti, Sankey, Yormark, and so forth, Jim Phillips. On the weekends, they're traveling around the games. During the week, they're handling administrative stuff, but they do have time to do this. I mean, they do have. I mean, at their level, they have time to do it. They'll make time. I mean, they have to do a lot of administrative stuff in the off season.
I mean, there's too much money for them not to figure something out.
I can't believe the gall
that
you would bring up the M word, money. How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you have the unmitigated gall to think sports is about money?
Everything's about money.
Okay, what is wrong with you? It's about glory. It's about competition.
Once they get on the field.
We spend half our time on this show talking about money, about holdouts, hold-ins, about attendance numbers, expense sheets, revenue sheets, so forth. Trying to give everybody a realistic idea of what's real and what is fantasy land. Because there's a lot of fantasy land out there in thoughts about sports. Tons of fantasy land. Like the rides are open at Fantasyland when it comes to what people think they know about sports. And I'm talking about the money side. It's sold out. It's going to be making money. No, it's not. I've got that balance sheet here. It's not happening. It's way 7 figures in the red. What? No. Yeah. We spend so much time talking about that. So everybody, and the reason we talk about it is that you, the fans, know. That's why we tell you, because that way we're giving you knowledge. We're giving you something that is real. Right? I mean, one of the great Fantasyland deal is Iowa women's basketball made money last year. No, they weren't even close. A year ago with Caitlin Clark, with all the great things they did, she did, attendance, everything, traveling, roadshow, the whole thing, they lost $3.6 million. It's just the way it is. Well, we'll take a break because, according to the suit, we're contractually obligated to. Back with more in a moment, brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is, because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Your summer just got better with Kia Bonus Cash at Sunbury Motors Kia. Summer is heating up at Sunbury Motors Kia with as much as $2,500 in Kia Finance Bonus Cash. That's what you'll save on the 2025 Kia Sorento. And get 1.9% APR financing for 60 months. The best-selling model at Sunbury Motors Kia, the 2025 Kia Sportage, has $500 off in Kia Finance Bonus Cash and has 1.9% APR financing for 60 months. Tired of going to the gas station all the time? Well, SMC has the 2025 all-wheel drive Kia Sportage Hybrid models available that get 38 mpg. Say goodbye to all those pump visits. Remember, every new Kia comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. Save now at Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf.
It's the music that the suit plays when he's on bumper cars, because it makes him more aggressive.
I figured it's to keep him a little bit calm so he doesn't actually hurt a child.
Get out of my way!
Drives it like he's driving the 11 and 15 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
You don't know how important I am. Here's the problem. They do. Oh, my goodness. Oh. Yeah, boy. Yeah, the championship game thing. Let's see. Big Ten Network game broadcasts. Play-by-play guys, Jeff Levering, Guy Haberman, Mark Fallowill, Jason Horowitz, Jason Ross Jr., Jason Benetti, A.J. Cannell, and Jack Kaiser. When it comes to analysts, Jake Butt, Yogi Roth. I don't know if you ever had a chance to talk to Yogi. What a great dude. Anthony Herron. And I've worked with Anthony before. Matt Millen, of course, I worked with Matt. Brock Fareem, Marcel Reese, Tanner Morgan, and former Northwestern offensive lineman Jared Thomas. On-field reporters will be Brooke Fletcher, Rhett Lewis, Danny Rogers, Sydney Supple, Melanie Ricks, Michaela Chester, Dre Avent, Kylan Mills, Alyssa Charlton, and Caroline Hendershot. Mike Pereira and Steve Strimling will serve as the analysts for officiating. And the crew in the studio, the same: Dave Repson, Ashley Adamson, Jerry Donardo, Howard Griffith. And so that's what they're doing. Rick Pizzo's still back, Mike Hall. They're going to add in Ross Dellinger, Dave Wanstadt. Of course, there's Urban Meyer. Journey is back again this year as well. So that's what they're doing at Big Ten Network, BTN.
Man, Tanner Morgan's only been out of school for like 2 years, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he was there for 8. No,
well,
I'm just kidding.
just mean.
just kidding.
Ooh.
Just kidding. I think it was, 5 years there? Which is fine, But you know what? I have no problem with that. He may be so when's the last time he would have played? 3 years ago? Maybe. But he can relate to today's athlete and what they're thinking and what they're not thinking, because now he's got a little more experience under his belt as a player and in life. And he can also relate to what they're doing. I think that's what you're asking him to do at that point.
Isn't it Miles that's doing basketball? Miles Dredd hasn't been out of school very long either, has he?
Miles Dredd last played in 2023.
Yeah.
And Miles Miles does want to make a career out of it. One form or another. Because I think when I've heard Miles, I think he's very good.
Actually, that was one of the things I remember. He did an early season game, and I was like, I wonder who this guy is. He is good. And I was like, wait a minute. He's like 12. How's he doing color already?
But you have to,
have to start somewhere.
You also have to break in. I had a youngster in my class who has great potential, great voice, the whole thing. And he's doing odds and ends right now. And I had to send him an email today telling him to hang in, that the early years are the toughest until somebody says yes and gets you in there. I told him to keep plugging away. It's just not easy.
No.
I mean, you don't think I don't wake up every day? I mean, every day. Not once in a while, but every day. And now how fortunate I've been to get where I've been able to get. I mean, really. Because not every day felt great.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour being brought to you by our good friend. Inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the all-important Sunbury Motors guarantee. Terrific service department that backs it up every step of the way, whether it's quick lane, inspections, routine, difficult. They handle it all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. And it is always a pleasure to sit down and talk with good friends, and that is Gerry Dulac. Welcome back, my friend.
Steve, it's always a treat to talk to you, and I was looking forward to it to brighten up my first day back at training camp.
Yes, training camp. Before I get to training camp, the Scheffler run of winning the PGA, winning the Open Championship, to go with everything else he's done this year. And I also found it was interesting that the ratings were up for the Open this year. Now that's not the Tiger Woods influence there, but is there a growing popularity for how this guy plays and how he handles himself, in your opinion?
What's funny about it all, Steve, is I think there's a growing appreciation by leaps and bounds for the guy, but I don't know that it has a direct correlation It doesn't have the Tiger effect because he's not that kind of guy. He's that kind of player. I'm not calling him Tiger, but he's just not that kind of guy. He's not Phil Mickelson. He's not Jordan Spieth. He's so consistent and efficient and basically unemotional and level-headed. Doesn't say anything too outrageous or stupid. He's very conciliatory. And he's Gomer Pyle is what he is to a degree. And I know the young people won't get that one, but you and I certainly will. And but I don't know that he increases the popularity of the game or the viewing of the game, other than to see maybe like how much is he going to win by. But he's so methodically consistent. It's shocking. I mean, week in and week out, and he treats every tournament he plays the same. Doesn't matter if it's Waste Management or it's the British Open or the Open. Excuse me, I don't want to call it the British Open anymore. I'm sure. Look, those other ones, the majors, mean more because that will establish his legacy. But to be honest, I really don't think he cares about his legacy. Maybe at some point he will, and maybe quietly he does. I don't think he does. I think and that's why he's so good. They talk in football about cornerbacks need to have a short memory because they're going to get beat. You got to forget about it. Right. He has a short memory the other way, which is he wins a tournament and he lets go of it, and he goes on to the next one and he goes out and treats it the same way. Goes out to try to win, just because that's just the way he's wired. And so, when he made that comment before the tournament, Steve, about the satisfaction of winning and saying, okay, is this all there is? And he's satisfied for 3 or 4 minutes and then he moves on. That's why he's so consistent. He doesn't get caught up in the adulation. The converse of that is Rory McIlroy, whose Masters hangover lasted pretty much up until the Open Championship. And he openly admitted it. And so, that's the other side of what Scottie Scheffler's about, and that's why Scottie just gets rid of that stuff, and he moves on, and he's successful week in and week out.
And again, I've only been around McIlroy a couple times. I thought when he won the Masters, it would relax him, and he'd win more tournaments. Instead, he acted as if the world had fallen on his shoulders, and I didn't get it, and I still don't get it.
His countrymen got to the point where they were giddy about him finally winning the Masters. Paul McGinley, who I like a great deal on the set of Live From on Golf Channel. Me too. Saying he thought maybe he could win all 4 majors this year and go on to win 10, 12 more majors. And Padraig Harrington basically said the same thing, that the pressure's off now. Look out. He's going to go on a run of winning majors. And I think the thing that I appreciated from Rory is he admitted that it just meant so much that he climbed that mountain after all those years. And after climbing the mountain, he was ready to come down and, enjoy it. And at some point in time, find another mountain to climb, however long it took. And it's obviously taken several months. Look, he played well in the Scottish Open. He played well in the Open Championship. But the motivation he had early in the year when he won Bay Hill, Arnold Palmer, and then he won the Players' Championship, and then he won the Masters, obviously all 3 elevated events. After doing that, that's the kind of run he could get on. But once he hit that peak, he was coming down, and he stayed down because that was like the ultimate for him after all those years of frustration of never winning the green jacket. It wasn't about the Grand Slam. It was about the green jacket. And it just wiped him out emotionally.
Okay, so at least wanted to talk about golf. Now we can get to the football part of it because you know how much I love the sport. So the Steelers get into camp. They signed Watt. Garrett had set a bar. Watt now extends the bar a bit. Now we'll see what happens with Micah Parsons. Was there any doubt in your mind that the Steelers would sign Watt? So this is really no surprise?
Yeah, never a doubt, Steve. And what the Steelers were facing, Steve, was a business decision, a smart business decision. Do we want to give a guy who's 31 a 5-year deal for whatever? Let's just use the number he was looking at, which is $36 million a year, 5 years, $180 million contract. Do they really want to do that? They wanted to sign TJ. They give deals to their stars as much for what they think they can still do as what they have done for them in the past. And so there was never a question whether they wanted to sign him. The only question was going to be, how long is this going to drag out, and can they come to some common ground? And I think they did. You're reading all these national reports that T.J. Watt is now the highest paid non-quarterback in football history. Well, that's really not true, Steve.
Right.
He signed a 4-year deal. They want to pay the agents paint it as a 3-year extension, and they get their guys in the national media who they trade information with to put out the extension because it makes the agent look good. Look at what I was able to get from my client. The reality is he signs a brand new 4-year deal, and the deal is the deal. And it's a 4-year deal that averages $36 million and some change, which puts him behind Myles Garrett's contract. He gets $108 fully guaranteed through the first 3 years of the contract. So it's a great deal for T.J. Watt. But then it becomes, it's like slicing bread. I mean, which side do you want? You want to paint it as it's an extension? Go right ahead. But that's not the reality of it. The reality of it is it's a new 4-year deal. They're happy with it. He's thrilled with it. They got him here before camp, which was important. And, but there was never a question that whether he was going to be here. Now, with Minkah Fitzpatrick, you knew that was, I was told a month earlier that was, I knew it was a possibility. There was never a real strong possibility with TJ, despite the stuff you hear fans say, trade him and get 2 number ones. That was a bunch of baloney.
Yeah. How interested are you in what the offensive line looks like, especially with a quarterback who had relied so much in his career on mobility but doesn't quite have that anymore?
Steve, that's one of the things we're going to find out, and there seems to be a lot of angst about the offensive line. And I don't quite get it because you're talking about a line that has 2 number 1 picks, a number 2 pick, a free agent guard in Isaac Seumalo, and a second-year guy who played a lot last year, Mason McCormick, who they really like. So your 2 tackles are number 1 picks each of the previous 2 years, and your center was a number 2 pick last year. So they have, a pedigree, a young pedigree on that line that's very promising. The big question mark, look, Troy Fautano, in the brief time that he was in training camp before he got hurt, and then he came back and he played 1 preseason game, instantly they said he was their second-best lineman. Well, this kid's a stud. Now, I know he's had some injury concerns, and look, it's only been 1 year, and hopefully that won't continue. But that kid's a stud, and they think Broderick Jones is immensely talented. They would just like to see him mature kind of professionally, personally, take his job and his profession just a little more seriously. But they think the world of Broderick Jones, and moving him to left tackle, which is more of his natural position. I know it's the most important position. That's going to be the thing everyone's going to want to see, because it wasn't exactly like he was a dominant player at right tackle, which, of course, is where Fautano will play this year. But they've paid attention to that line with high draft picks, and, none of whom have played more than 2 years. So to me, it's like, give them, 3 of them have played 1 year. One of them, Fautano, really hasn't even played a year. So I think there's a lot of promise on that offensive line, and that's the way they're looking at it.
See, Fautano to me is the key with all this, because I'm with you. I see not a little bit, great potential in him, And I think they have a chance. They have a chance to have an excellent offensive line with the existing pieces and the addition of him. See, I think he becomes the key to all this.
Well, I would agree with you, and of course, you're always looking at your tackles, and the left tackle being the most important one. But with Fautanu, and the way they view him, and as good as he is, and if he continues that, I mean, he's going to be a Pro Bowl player in a short amount of time. This is a powerful man who can move. He's very explosive, and to your previous question, Steve, about Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that's going to be a big deal. How much protection can they give a 41-year-old quarterback, especially for a team that likes to run the ball? Look, if they want to drop and pass pro, that's fine. But they still want their offensive line to run block. So, that's the key. If you want to do just one or the other, you're probably going to sacrifice one. If you want to just run block, you might sacrifice pass pro. If you want to pass pro, you might sacrifice run block. But the key will be trying to get them to do both while making sure your 41-year-old quarterback doesn't go out on the fifth play of the game.
I realize that you're covering the Steelers. Can you figure out at all what the Bengals are attempting to do with their defensive ends?
No. They needed to pay Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals have been the one thing they're trying to do is pay their offensive stars. And they figure, okay, if we can't stop them, then we will outscore them. And it's one of the problems teams have when you got the best receiver in the league, arguably, if not the best quarterback, certainly in the top three in the conversation with Joe Burrow. And then you got another receiver like T. Higgins. And so, they need, though, to invest in their offensive line. But their defense is, teams went through them last year. I was surprised when the Bengals paid the money they did for their offensive guys, but they're already losing guys on defense, and if they whatever is going to happen with Trey Hendrickson, to me, you can understand the money he wants. Look, I mean, if there was arbitration in football, he would get what he wants when they stack up his numbers. But there is no arbitration in football, and it's going to be up to Mike Brown and Katie Brown.
Right. Exactly. Because, as you know, I was not big on the draft to start to begin with.
Right.
I was in the category of, I don't get it. But now they're trying to put clauses in the contract because of what he did off the field. It's like he's the only number one not signed. I mean, and I think they drafted him that leverage with Hendrickson. I think you got to give them credit. I think they outsmarted themselves.
Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do. Yeah, I didn't really like that draft choice. I thought that they were maybe going to go Derek Harmon, whom the Steelers picked. But yeah, I don't. For years they've always drafted very curious. They never invested. Now, this is going back a little bit. They never invested a lot in their scouting department, and they've not been a team historically. It's gotten better lately. It's drafted very well, and made good personnel decisions. But when you do get receivers like they got, obviously they drafted him and they drafted Joe Burrow. That's helped them. But they have to. They spent a lot of time drafting cornerbacks over the years and not paying attention to their front seven, especially their linebacker crew. Their linebacker crew historically has been weak, and while paying a bunch of attention to the back end of their defense, and a lot of those guys are gone. So, I don't know what goes in with the ins and outs of the Bengals, but as we all know, they've always been historically frugal, and they still are. Yeah, he's going to spend a lot of time on the football field. They drafted him for a reason. You and I have talked about this, for the last actually 2 years, where I've told you their number one priority above all else has been retooling and rebuilding that defensive line. because other than Cam Hayward, and they've made some draft picks, third-round pick. Keanu Benton is a nice piece. He was a second-round pick. But you have to start using your top picks like they did on the offensive line with Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. You have to start doing that with your defensive line. And I wouldn't stop at Derek Harmon this year. I would do it again next year, although that might be a different story with a quarterback. Well, that's a tale for another time. But, they got rid of, they let go of Larry Ogunjobi, so automatically there's a spot on the starting line, on their three-man line, and that's going to be Derek Harmon. As Tom Donahoe once said, they didn't bring him in to lead the band at halftime, and so he's going to play. And there's no easing him into it. And I'm curious to see how good that kid is. I've seen the tape on him. I know his measurables and everything. But I'd be curious to see, always with a defensive lineman, how disruptive he can be. And Cam Hayward, and look, he's 36, going to be 37. And they can't keep relying on Cam having an all-pro season like he did last year, which is, at his age was really remarkable. So I think it was a necessary move. And, that'll be one of the keys. Obviously, everybody's going to see what can Aaron Rodgers do. I think Derek Harmon on the defensive line and a player very well, Caleb Johnson, what can he do for the running game? Because eventually he'll be their back next year. And I'm sure as this year goes on, he'll end up being their feature back because I don't think Jaylen Warren is really a feature back. He's just a nice complementary back. So those to me, and look, they got so many new players, 11 new starters, half their team, after starting unit is brand new. So there's so many different faces. In that transition, we'll see how that works. DK Metcalf, how's he going to work on the outside with Aaron Rodgers? I mean, that's another thing you'll want to see. But so there's a couple interesting things to watch here at training camp without question.
And then you guys Gainwell the complementary player as well.
Right, absolutely. I liked it with him when he was with the Eagles. Yep. He'll be their third back. I don't know how they're going to use him. But obviously they'll want Caleb Johnson to, as soon as he's ready, even if he's not ready, to get into that ball game and get some time. Because, like I said, eventually by next year, Jaylen Warren was just a one-year tender, so they'll let him go after this year, and Caleb Johnson will be their running back.
My friend, thank you so much for the time. I know it's a busy time, and you gave us some of that today, and I appreciate it so much.
Well, Steve, I always enjoy talking to you, and I'll enjoy talking to you once that Penn State football season begins so I can get kind of some of the lowdown and inside from you.
You got it. You get a little bit more off the side, too, okay?
I know that, man.
Thanks, man.
Always good chatting with you, my friend.
Thanks, Gerry. The great Gerry Dulac, one of the best in the business. And this half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.